What is up, guys? Welcome back to a brand new Dragon Ball Legends video on Dragon Ball Central. Today, we are going to be going over something that a lot of people most likely missed from the most recent update. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright, guys, so if you're like me, whenever a new update pops up, you go over to the news, you check everything out, make sure you're not missing out on anything, because sometimes they announce things kind of subtly and under the radar. So, first and foremost, go over to the update announcement. They fixed some issues. That's great. They did an update. There's obviously some leaks and, some data mines that have happened since then on things that haven't been introduced to the game just yet, like login bonuses, things like that. But with that said, guys, you go over to the Challenge Rush here, and you're like, okay, Challenge Rush, pretty awesome. 1,000 Chrono Crystals. You can get a nice title if you clear all the missions. That's really dope. It looks actually fantastic, so that's a really, really cool reward you can get. And you're just scrolling on down, you see all of these different things you can get out of it, obtainable equipment and all that fun stuff. Now, it is really, really important to note here that these are all of the extreme equipments that you can get. That means that basically those are going to equip to extreme-only units, and that's going to give them a massive, massive defensive and offensive buff, and a decent health buff as well. But the offensive and defensive buffs are the real main things you want to take into account here. So, with that said, guys, you're probably thinking, okay, so what's the thing that you're talking about, Chicken? Well, if you go down to obtain extreme specific equipment, and Legends Battle Royal Extreme is coming in July. Boom, there you go. They dropped a bomb out of nowhere. Ridiculous, fantastic announcement here, because we have a guaranteed possible 1,800 crystals now, unless they change things up, make it a little bit different. That we are going to be getting in July. So that is really, really cool. They're sort of building up this momentum for the anniversary, building up the hype and everything like that. And then they're going to be ending off that hype, not by just dropping off like Dokkan used to do, but they are not going to be doing that. They're going to hop right into the hype for the Legends Battle Royal Extreme that's going to be coming next month, guys. So you definitely want to make sure that you get your extremes maxed out. You get their equipments as min-maxed as you can, meaning that, you get the best possible equipments that you can. Farm these out, guys, if you can. Get the missions done, and then you can go ahead and use your skip tickets to get a ton of these equipments, and then be able to max them out. Get them as high percentage-wise as you possibly can, because that'll give you a huge advantage going into this event. Now, with that said, I wanted to go over today a few of the teams that you might want to focus on getting ready for this particular event. So we're going to go over to the character list. I've already got it set up. We've got all the EXs shown right now, and I want to go over a couple teams you want to go ahead and get ready for the Battle Royal. So, guys, first and foremost, I think that the best team, unless we get something crazy and new introduced into the game before the actual Royal happens, which I'd imagine there are going to be at least a couple EXs that are new to the game that are going to be introduced in the coming banners. But with that said, what are going to be your best options, at least from what we have right now? Well, first and foremost, the best team in the entire game as far as EX only is concerned is most likely going to be the Android team. So, guys, if you go ahead and just look at all the Androids we have access to that are EXs only, there are actually some really great options. First and foremost, the core of your team is most likely going to be Green 17 and Purple 18. They are pretty much the best that you have access to. On top of that, their limit break abilities are ridiculous. You get massive, massive offensive and defensive buffs, which just buffs their stats that much, on top of the already great stats that they have, and on top of the already great equipment they have access to. So really a fantastic thing there, especially if you have some min-maxed equipment for them from this particular Challenge Rush mode, right? So it's a really great idea to go ahead and max those out, get them as good as they possibly can be, because 7 stars on these guys, very, very powerful. Now, with that said, what's your third going to be? Well, most likely you're going to want to get as much value out of those two, the 17 and 18, as you can possibly get. So in most cases, I think that the third will probably be First Form Cell. Now, is it possible you're going to be going with different team comps based on your situation? And in particular, probably. If you go over to his unique abilities, you're going to see he has against Piccolo Strike Attack Up. Most likely Piccolo's not going to be played too much. But if you head on over to Second Form Cell, then you're going to see he has Anti-Saiyan, but not just Anti-Saiyan. He has Blast Attack up by 25% against Android tag characters. So if you're going into the mirror match, you're going to have a decent advantage against not really 17, because obviously 17 is going to be type advantaged against blue, but against 18. And then if they decide to use either of the red EXs that we have access to here, right, I don't think they're going to, but if they did, you'd have a good advantage. So maybe you want to do that as your third in specific instances where you want a little bit extra damage against a mirror match. But otherwise, that's probably going to be your best core. And then on top of that, you have great support with 19 and 20 as well, because they have fantastic Z abilities at 7 stars. As you guys can see, 26% to blast, attack, and defense, and then Giro, Mr. Android 20 himself, has the same counterpart in strike, attack, and defense. So fantastic stuff there. All in all, the support is really good, guys. So I really would recommend getting them ready, getting all their equipment min-max. Make sure that you have the team sorted and ready to go, because that is most likely going to be the most coherent and together team that you're going to be able to use in the upcoming event. Now, the other team I think will be absolutely dominant in this event is going to be the female warrior tag team. Now, the main reason is going to be Videl, which I unfortunately do not have, but Videl is actually a very big player right now in the normal meta of the female warrior tag team. So definitely going to be really good when you stack her up against other extremes, let alone, you know, actual sparkings and things like that. Once she does have that purple boost equipment, it's really a good option. So definitely recommend checking into this team if you do have Videl at a decent, you know, loadout, especially because, you know, the limit breaks are most likely, again, going to be boosted all the way up to 7, so you really don't need to worry too much about that. You're getting all the stat buffs, you're getting all the Z ability buffs, and then if you have the equipment min-maxed and ready to go, then that is definitely going to be a great option. On top of that, guys, you have pretty decent coverage. You have an HP buff with 18 here. I mean, that's actually a really solid HP buff. If you go over here, female warrior tag buff, going to be 18% at 7 stars, so that's a really good option too for support. But on top of that, you know, you have Bulma, you have, you know, yellow, red, purple, and green coverage. So you have options all around the wheel here. And really, guys, that's going to be one of your better options, especially if you have Videl. So definitely check into this team as well if you do have all of the parts to it. I would say that Caulifla and Videl are most likely going to be your best options here, although I could also see either of the 18s being a great option. Bulma's going to be a great option. B-Pan's a decent option. And all around, just a really solid team with a good amount of support, no matter what you actually have. As long as you have Videl, you're probably going to have a good core for this team. All right, guys, so the third team I think is going to be very good in this particular event is going to be the Future Tag Team, mainly and only if you do have Teen Trunks and Future Gohan, both of which are absolutely ridiculous for their own reasons. We're going to talk about that. And basically, this team is going to be really good because of those two. The third member not going to be as good no matter what you actually choose. And the support for the team isn't as plentiful as for the female warrior tag team or the android tag team. So it's probably not going to be as consistent or as heavily buffed. But at the same time, these are some really good characters. So first and foremost, Teen Trunks, absolutely ridiculous strike buffs at 7 stars. Main ability is going to fill his hand a little bit quicker. And then on top of that, he has 2 strike buffs that can stack up going up against the regen team. But on top of that, right off the beginning of the match, you're going to be able to throw in Teen Trunks and do 40% extra strike damage. He already has really good strike attack on his stats without any buffs. So getting those buffs are going to be very powerful, very impactful. And, you know, he's used up against regen teams during regen-based metas already. So that's going to be kind of ridiculous when you're pitting him up against just other extremes. Now, with that said, you don't have only one member of that team that's going to be really good. You have 2. That's going to be Gohan as well. He has really great strike and blast defense buffs, which are really nice to have, especially in a sort of situation where you're going to have a lot of offensive buffs from really good equipment and defensive buffs from really good equipment. Stacking up on those defensive buffs can be very valuable and will eventually win you games, even if you don't really directly notice it. Now, with that said, main ability is going to be a nice restore own health and 20% damage inflicted for 20 timer counts, which is pretty decent. On top of that, you have blast attack up by 40% if Trunks is a battle member. So again, you have both of them. They work very well as a duo. And he has cover sustain damage cut by 40% until combo end, which is really valuable and a very powerful thing to have access to that the Android team doesn't really have as much of access to. Now, it does have a little bit, but that probably won't be something that actually comes into play very often. So the Future Tag Team, a very good option. Now, the third member is going to be a little bit up in the air. Mai is a great option, even though it is running purple, green. If you do go ahead and do that as your core, it's still a pretty good option because she does have that future support. On top of that, if you go over to her support details, you know, main abilities, going to give you a special arts card guaranteed. own ki by 50%, so you can do that and then switch immediately after, you know, a Strike Arts card or a Blast Arts card, which is going to be a very valuable thing to do. And 20% to allies inflicted damage for 15 timer counts, bringing the additional buffs on Trunks up to about 100% if you're going up against regen, so that's going to be kind of ridiculous. On top of that, pretty good Z ability buff there, so you're going to have Blast Attack as well, 31% at 3 stars, and then even more than that at 4 stars, which is very, very good. And then inflicted damage up, assist, and then strike attack up, assist, which is just very, very good, guys. So she doesn't really function on her own very well, but the buffs that are going to be given to Gohan and to Trunks in this case may be worth putting her on the team, because she's going to be that ridiculous when it comes to buffing Trunks, making it so he can do that much damage. And then you have good defensive options with Gohan. Only going up against yellows are going to be your main issues, and I don't really know what I'd say back to that, guys, honestly, because that is going to be a major issue for this team. But Trunks and Gohan are that good, so they definitely deserve an inclusion on this list of teams. All right, guys, so I do have a 4th team I do want to mention, just sort of as an honorable mention here, because it does have some really powerful team members, but it does also have some issues with it. That is going to be the Regen team. So Regen, as you guys know, has some really, really great options here, but not too many of them. We have 3. We have blue, yellow, yellow as our real main options for a Regen team. The other characters here really aren't Regen focused. They're just focused on their own colors or things like that. And they are options if you do want to really run a Regen team. You can do that, but they're not going to be buffing the rest of the team members. So maybe they're not as worth it and not as value to run, because, you know, you have other teams where you have full support for the tag. In this case, you really don't have that, but Evil Boo is that good. He can still compete in a normal meta sense going into PvP ranked right now. And I would say that if Regen was meta right now, Slug might also be making a splash, because he is really, really good. Janemba, he's all right. He has really good stat lineups, don't get me wrong. But again, it's one of those situations where Regen just is falling off a little bit. We have Super Vegito. We have really, really great options with him. His unique ability buff against Regen is making it very difficult to run Regen teams. So maybe it's not the best idea to run that in PvP right now. So we really don't know how he'd be stacking up if Regen was still a very meta thing to run, because right now it's sort of fallen off against Fusion Warrior and against Saiyan and against God Ki. But otherwise, guys, this is a good option. You have some really great damage output. Obviously, Evil Boo, bit of a glass cannon. You have defensive options with Slug, and you have offensive options and some decent tankiness as well with Janemba. But is it really going to be your best option? Well, if you have all these characters and none of the other ones, maybe it is. But otherwise, I would definitely recommend leaning towards androids, leaning towards female warrior tag, or even leaning towards the anti-regen, which is going to absolutely decimate this team, by the way, in most cases. Now, if this is running double yellow and you got double purple on anti-regen, it might be a little more competitive, but at the same time, 100% damage buff at best against that team, maybe still going to even things out in the favor of the anti-regen team. So I don't know, guys. What do you think is going to be the most dominant team? Looking down this list, we got to go ahead and just do this real quick. But looking down this list, guys, there are a few options that I really didn't consider. There are monotype teams, obviously, and there are other things that I do want to talk about. But all in all, I think that the teams that I mentioned are going to be the most dominant ones. And I think that most likely the other ones are going to fall into tiers below. Now, God Ki could be relevant. Again, you don't have all the support here that you probably need to make a fully fledged team, but Whis is really, really good, and Beerus is actually really, really good as well. So this is a great option too if you do have both of them and you want to throw in some support for just their colors. Then maybe go ahead and try that. But I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. Go down to the comment section below and let me know, do you think there's going to be a more dominant team than the ones I mentioned today? Or do you think female warrior tag and android tag are probably going to be the ones that take home the W's in most cases? Again, assuming we don't get too many more very relevant and very meta changing extremes, in which case I'll put out another video and sort of talk about that before the actual event starts. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one. Till then, peace.